Unit 1, Lesson 12. Today we're going to look at multiplying decimals traditionally. Okay, last lesson we looked at it using the area model, but today we'll do traditional method of doing that. Okay, but do page 32, skills maintenance, pause the video, and then we'll check our answers. Okay, so the first one, we're looking at 0.3 times 0.5 using the area model. Again, when we are doing this now, okay, vertically is that first number, so we need to highlight 30 of those boxes. Okay, so 30 of them, and then horizontally we want to do 50. Okay, 0.5. Okay, and then if you remember, we are looking for the overlap, okay, which will give us this square. So we got 1, 2, 3, so 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. 15 boxes out of 100, okay? And again, so we're going to the hundredths place, and we got 15, so 0.15. If you do number 2 and number 3, you should get 0.14. And then finally, 0.56 for number 3. Okay, so make sure you got those correct. Now, again, like I said, today we're going to multiply decimals using the traditional method. When doing this, okay, we got some steps we need to follow. The first step, okay, we're going to line up the numbers just like we would if we were to multiply whole numbers. Okay, so for me, you're going to hear me say we need to line up that right side. Okay, so imagine like we're multiplying 77 times 45. And from there, we're just going to multiply those numbers out just like we normally would. 7 times 5, get that 35, carry the 3. 5 times 7, 35 plus the 3, we get that 38. Okay, and then the step that people will typically forget is adding this 0. We moved over a place value. So before we multiply the 4 times 7 and 4 times 7, we need to add a 0. Okay, so and then we multiply by that 4 times 7 to get 28. Okay, and then 4 times 7 again, plus that 2, we will get 30. Okay, last step there would be to add those two numbers up to get that 3,465. Okay, now we haven't dealt with our decimals quite yet. Okay, so the way we're going to deal with that is we're going to count how many decimal places we had in the original. Okay, so here we got 1, here we got 1. So a total of 2 decimal places. So in our answer now, we're going to move over those 2 decimal places, and that is where our decimal will go. So 34.65 in this case. Okay, so here, place the decimal point in the proper position. Okay, so like in this one, we got 1, 2, 1, 2. So that decimal place will go between the 8 and the 1 in that case. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that decimal place will be between the 2 and the 6. In the third one, we got 1, 2, 3 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3. The decimal place will go in between the 6 and the 8. This will just emphasize it a little bit more. 2 decimal places, so we move it over 2 places for 268.18. In the second problem, again, we said we had 4. So moving that decimal place over 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to give us 2.6818. And then the final one, 3 decimal places. So again, between that 6 and the 8, when we move over that 3 decimal places. Okay, so that answer. So as you can tell here, first one, 2 decimal places, we moved over twice. Second one, 4 decimal places, moved it over 4 times. And the last one, 3 decimal places, so we move it over 3 times. Okay. So put the decimal place in the proper answer. Again, we got 2 decimal places. Let's just go to what we got here. Okay, here they just rounded. Okay, 25.3. Okay, that rounds to 25 nearest whole. 10.6 rounds to 11, which is 275. Okay, so when they did that answer of 268.18, that is pretty close, okay, compared to something like 26.818 or 2,681.8, okay? So having that proper position of the decimal is huge. Okay, so on that next one, they'll round that to 25.3 times 0.1. Okay, or 2.53, which is close to that 2.68. Okay, so just going through our steps of multiplying traditionally. Okay, we tell how we solved a multiplication problem with decimal number by explaining our thinking like this. Okay, we line up the numbers to the right, not by the decimal point. Okay, adding and subtracting, we did the decimal point. Now we're going to line them up on the right side, just like you would with whole numbers. Okay, multiply just as they were whole numbers. And then finally, we count the digits to the right of the decimal point, and then move that many decimal places over in our answer. Okay, then we can do the rounding with the whole numbers to make sure we are close to our answer. Okay, so apply skills, page 33. Go ahead and do that. Line up your right side, multiply like whole numbers, count your decimal places. Okay, so number one, we got 0.3 times 0.21. So when we do this, all you really need to do is think 21 times 3, or 3 times 21. I'm going to say 21 times 3. Okay, so then 3, 6. Now, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to count my decimal places. 1, 2, 3. So with that, I need to move this over 1, 2, 3 spots. Now, if you get an open spot like that, we're going to fill it in with a 0. So 0.063 in this case. Okay, we'll do one more. Let's see. I want to do number 5. Okay, we got 0.6 times 0.04. So all I'm going to think is 6 times 4, which we get 24. But then we need to count. We got 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. There's my decimal. Fill in that 0, 0.024. Okay, for the other answers, you should have gotten that one. Okay, 5 thousandths, 72 hundredths, and then finally 1. Now thinking about it, let's do number 3 together so we make sure we understand that. So, again, the number I see is 2 and 7. So all I'm going to do is 7 times 2, and I get 14. But then you got to think 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places that we need to move over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so filling in those zeros into those blank spots, 0.0014. Okay, using the traditional method now here, 0.85 times 0.8. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll do that one together. So 0.85 times 0.8. Okay, if you want to, just do 85 times 8. Okay, so we'll get 40 there. 8 times 8, 64 plus 4, so 68. And then in this case, we had 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 0.68. Okay, that's what you should have got for number 1. Okay, doing the other ones, you should have got 13.25. Number 3, 1.274. Number 4, you should have got 2.7623. And then finally, number 5, 18.2. Okay, now I do want to go back and let's do number 4 together. 12.01 times 23 hundredths. Okay, but again, ignore the decimal for now. Just line it up like you would as a whole number and multiply. So 3, 0, 6, 3. Now, when we move to the multiply by the 2, remember, we need to add that 0 because we moved over a place value. Now we multiply by 2. So 2 times 1, 2 times 0, 2 times 2, and then 2 times 1. Add those up. And then count our decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need to move over 4 decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's where we get the 2.7623. Okay. So one last time, line it up just like you would with whole numbers. Think of them as whole numbers until the end. Count your decimal places. Move over the proper number of decimal places. Okay, so indirect relationships, we discussed these in lesson 11 a little bit already. If you remember, direct relationships, as one went up, so did the other. Indirect, as one variable increases, the other decreases, okay, or vice versa. So like in this case, the hours of exercise per week, as those went up, okay, you're noticing that the weight in pounds went down, okay? So like initially it started with 2 hours and 250 pounds, okay? And the last one, okay, hours, 5.5 hours, went down to 190 pounds. So as the hours of exercise per week increased, the weight in pounds decreased, okay? So that is a case where we have an indirect relationship. Okay, so problem solving activity, page 34. It's an experiment that you'd have to do in class, so we can't exactly do that. But for this experiment, we did, okay, you would have this list of words here, list of word pairs. Okay, I'll give you 4 minutes to try to memorize that, and then after that, we would do a test where I would say the first word, and you would have to follow up with the second word. Okay, so the first time, I just did a random one here. The first test, you were able to get 7 out of the 8 words correct. Okay, then I'd wait another 3 minutes and I'd say the first word and you have to come up with the second word. Okay, this time only 5 of them were correct. Okay, another 3 minutes, 3 were correct. Another 3 minutes, 2 were correct. Okay, so if you notice, okay, as the number of minutes increased, okay, the number of correct decreased. So that's another case of an indirect relationship. Okay, the minutes went up, number of correct went down. Okay, if you think about it, the longer you wait for something to answer, the harder it's going to be to answer them properly, okay, correctly. Okay, so another example of an indirect relationship, number of minutes increased, so did then the number of correct decreased. Okay, that is your indirect relationships. Okay, one goes up, the other goes down. All right, so that is lesson 12. Okay, so your homework, unit 1, lesson 12, make sure to get that done. If you have any questions, make sure you are asking them. Other than that, have a good day.